Texture can be created by abrading or scratching the metal as with files or sandpaper. In Green Cheese Gouger, both the coarse linear texture in the blade and the mirror polish in the dome were made using grit, although the blade finished up with 180 grit sandpaper and the dome went all the way through the various grits and compounds to jeweler's rouge. By this point in the class, you've already learned a few ways of creating texture, although the texture was a byproduct of other work being done, such as sawing and filing. A sawn edge can be left as a texture when it fits in with your design, as can a filed edge. And the edges of your files themselves make great cross-hatching tools on surfaces. Sandpaper can be used to make any number of textures depending on how you move it across the metal, although in jewelry, it's most often used to make quiet, soft, linear patterns. Sandpaper comes in grits, numbered according to how many grains fit within an inch, so the lower the number, the coarser the abrasive. For metal work, I recommend silicon carbide sandpaper because the grit is more consistent and the glue used to attach it is more durable. Also, it's waterproof, which means that it can be used for wet sanding, which is more efficient. If you're using sandpaper to make a subtle texture or to prepare for high grit polishing, it's important to be methodical. Sanding a complex piece can take a great deal of time, and there are things you can do that will increase your efficiency. Number 1, start with the right grit. One coarse enough to quickly remove the marks that are already in the metal, but no coarser. It's a guess at first as to which one's the right one, but as you begin sanding, you'll be able to gauge your progress. If it's especially slow, don't be afraid to switch to a coarser grit. Number 2, maximize your leverage by putting something solid behind the sandpaper, such as a file, sanding stick, or block of wood. Even just folding the sandpaper or rolling it up will give it more structure and make it work faster. Number 3, each time you go up a grit, you'll have to remove all the marks made by the previous grit. Change your sanding direction each time you change grit, and keep going until all the cross-hatching disappears. Figure out what direction you want your final marks to go, how many grits you'll be using, and count backwards to figure out which direction to start. To sand your exercises, your filing needs to be completely finished before you begin sanding. Put on your visor and inspect your filing under good light for inconsistencies in shaping and for stray saw marks. Sand your edges starting with 320, wrapping your files to provide more leverage, and pushing the paper across the edge. Keep sanding until all file marks are removed and all you see are 320 grit marks crossing your edge. Repeat with 400 grit sandpaper, running it so the marks follow the edge, and until all the 320 grit marks are removed. Use your visor to closely inspect your work, and don't move on until all you see are long 400 grit lines flowing along the edges. When you sand your first surface, don't hold the sandpaper in your hand and rub it across the metal. It's inefficient because your fingers are squishy. It also rounds off the edges and creates a haloing effect. Instead, dust off a flat surface and tape your whole sheet of sandpaper to it. Make some tape loops for your fingers to give you a better grip. And then rub your metal against the sandpaper. Check your work periodically and keep going until no sign of the previous texture is visible. Rotate the piece and repeat with the 400 grit paper until all the cross-hatching is gone. Protect the finished surface with masking tape and sand the other side the same way. There are many tools designed to work with your flex shaft to create abrasive textures. Split mandrels are slotted cylinders designed to hold strips of sandpaper. They're perfect for sanding edges, especially larger inside curves. Use a scissors to cut a 1-inch wide strip of sandpaper. Fold over the very end to help it stay in the slot. And slip it into the slot. Slowly turn the mandrel to see if you've put it in facing the right direction. Obviously, it works better with the grit facing out. Either reverse the motor's direction or flip the sandpaper over. Slowly turn the mandrel to wind the sandpaper up around the cylinder. Gently press the sandpaper against the edge to be sanded and start it turning. Keep it moving along the edge to keep from wearing a notch into your metal. As the paper wears out, tear off the worn bit and keep sanding. Like your files, the mandrels come in several sizes. You already have a 3/16" mandrel in your toolkit, but we have larger sizes in the tip-out bins near the large drill press. Always take your bits and burrs out of the chuck when you're done and hang the handpiece up on the rack. Otherwise, they slide off the bench top and hit things along their arc. Drill bits will usually just break, but other tools like the split mandrels will bend, and once they are bent, it's very hard to get them straight again. Even a small bend can cause them to suddenly bend all the way over if they're run at high speeds, and then they whack you in the fingers about 20 times before you can take your foot off the pedal. We have abrasive wheels in several grits and 2 shapes. These are made of a mixture of rubber and abrasive grit, and are used mounted on screw-type mandrels. These abrasive wheels are excellent for use on surfaces. To use them, unscrew the head of the mandrel all the way. Insert the stem through the hole in the wheel and screw the stem back into the shaft of the mandrel. Mount the mandrel into the chuck of the flex shaft. Spin the wheel and gently touch it to your workpiece. Keep it moving as you resurface your metal, or it'll begin to dig wheel ruts into the material. The wheels wear away as they're used, especially on edges. This means you'll have to replace them fairly often. On the other hand, they can be shaped using coarse sandpaper if you need a different edge profile for a certain task. Fiber wheels are made of a mixture of polymer and grit, the same as that used in kitchen scrubbers. These are great for putting a brushed finish on edges and surfaces and are squishy enough to get inside tight places like ring bands. These come already mounted on a disposable mandrel. Use them as you would rubber abrasive wheels. And like rubber wheels, they ablate with use. Replace them before you get too close to the steel hub they're mounted on.